the Nonprofit Podcast, powered by Donorbox.
What if I told you that your email list is already full of future donors? You're just not talking to them the right way. In this episode, we are diving into how to move from mass messaging to meaningful journeys with email automation that feels personal, not robotic. Whether you are running a nonprofit, a school, or a scrappy fundraising team, this is your blueprint to turn subscribers into supporters. And no, it's not just about more emails, it's about smarter ones. Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast. I'm Jenna, Education and Community Engagement Manager here at Donorbox. We are here each week with practical actions you can use today to increase donations and take your nonprofit to the next level tomorrow. And today we are diving into how nonprofits can go from one-size-fits-all email blast to creating personal experiences that actually turn subscribers into loyal donors. And joining me is Chris Barlow, founder and director of Beeline Marketing. Chris is a nonprofit marketing expert who helps organizations connect with donors in ways that actually work, and he's one of our favorite guests. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Jenna. It's awesome to be back with you again.
I'm so excited for this one. I think this is long overdue. Email is such a huge part of donor engagement, but I think it's also where so many nonprofits struggle to find that right balance. I think it feels like you're either sending too much and you're annoying people, or you're not sending enough and they forget about you completely. But you've got a way to fix that, I think, today. We are talking a fair amount about email automation, and I know it's so much more than a buzzword. You've worked with tons of nonprofits to optimize email strategy. So what should nonprofits start thinking about?
Well, just what do we mean by the word automation? To me, it's just using software to create a workflow that automates a repetitive marketing or fundraising task. So it gets rid of a manual tasks that you or your team has to do so that you can actually not only save time, but deliver a better experience for your subscriber. Because it would be impossible to manually send emails out to hundreds of thousands of people. And so the automation allows you to do that.
And I think too, it's letting yourself have time for other meaningful tasks, right? And it does take a little bit of elbow grease, I think, to set these automations up, which is why I think a lot of folks haven't considered it in their workflows or in the way that they're communicating with their donors. So let's backtrack a little bit. How do you teach nonprofits how to start thinking about it?
The most basic email software has some ways to basically create a sequence or a workflow where you have just one email after another that you write and set up. And the most common way that you're probably already doing this is with a welcome series. It's talked about so much across the industry as best practice. And having that welcome series in place allows you to start to build a relationship with a new subscriber or donor without having to, again, manually send those emails out. And people are coming in at different times. They're donating at different moments, different days, or they're subscribing at different times. Again, you could not possibly try to manually send each one of those people a sequence of emails. So why not have it automated? So the welcome series is really a great one to start with. That's what Beeline, we have several different welcome series. Basically, they're very similar to one another, but we tweak them based on what's the entry point. If someone came in through a quiz, or if someone came in through a download, or if they came in through another way, we kind of tailor that sequence differently. Another one that's actually not used really at all that I see among nonprofits, but we use it, is for your main email series to be an automation. And you're like, well, what does that mean, Chris? Well, okay, a lot of nonprofits send a newsletter. Maybe it's monthly, maybe it's twice a month or more often. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of information, and it's a blast. It's one and done. You have to put a ton of work into it, and it's gone. But how much of that newsletter information is actually information that doesn't change a lot? It's actually evergreen. And for our newsletter, whenever we create a new email, if the content is evergreen or mostly evergreen, maybe it'll change in a few years, we will not just send it out as a blast to our list. We have a main email sequence that sends out an email every 2 weeks. And we'll just add a new email to the bottom of that sequence anytime we add a new email. So if you go and subscribe for my email list, you will hear from us for the next 25 months, 24 months, because we have 50 emails in that sequence. They're all evergreen. It's all high value content about marketing for nonprofits. And so I don't have to worry about that staying top of mind for a new subscriber, because I know they're going to hear at least every 2 weeks, and then occasionally we'll send some other ones. So I'll just give one really specific idea here for you as a nonprofit. Instead of like your newsletter blast, you could do a newsletter blast for the stuff that's changing, like anything that's actually news, that's going to be not evergreen. But for all the other content, consider putting it into a sequence where you just maybe every week or two add a new email to it. And then again, like, yeah, you are still having to create new emails and new content, but new subscribers, you've got a long runway before they run out of content in hearing from you.
That's a really smart idea, and honestly, not something I've ever considered. I feel like I am always reinventing the wheel, and I am just writing, writing, writing endlessly. Okay, but you said something, and I raised my eyebrow a little bit. And I know that our listeners are going to raise their eyebrow too, because you said something to me earlier over email that nonprofits should just kill their monthly newsletters. And that's a bold statement. That is a really bold statement. So now you just said you've got this sequence that could potentially run up to 24, 25 months, which is amazing, but still then sending the things that are more time sensitive or, time bound as a newsletter. But so tell me more about killing their monthly newsletter. Why do you think that's the right move? What do you mean about that?
Yeah. Okay. It may be a little dramatic, but what I mean is often we put so much work into a newsletter. There's a lot of information in a newsletter. And I want to ask you, just as an individual, when was the last time you opened a big newsletter and spent more than about 25 seconds reading through it? Like, you glance it, right? Maybe you click one thing on it. Maybe it's too much and you're like, I'll come back to that. And you never go back to it. I think we're overwhelming people with the amount of information we're trying to give them all at one time. And it's been shown that emails with one call to action have much higher engagement and click throughs. And so instead of a newsletter that has everything, what if we instead found out what are our subscribers actually interested in hearing? And, we might have a group of subscribers that are like, we want to read every one of your stories. And then you're going to have people who are like invested in the internal stories and what's going on with the organization itself. Maybe there's another element of like news that is affecting your space, your sector of the nonprofit world, that could affect your mission. So there's news there. And then I've got a client, they have a segment of their list called the Insiders team, and they will share like, hey, can you share this with your networks? We're looking for someone to hire someone for this, or we need people to engage with this post. We really want to get this to new people, or we'd love some feedback on this new page on our site or this new program, and we're looking for beta testers to go through this course or read this new download and give us feedback before we publish it widely. So like finding out the different segments of your newsletter, and then you can use automation. What you could do, for example, is just send out a single email and say, hey, here's a survey. Which of these topics are you interested in hearing more about? Then let people answer, and based on their answers, tag them. Say, okay, people who are interested in internal updates, people who want to be on the insider sheet, people who are interested in news. And then instead of sending one newsletter, you turn your newsletter into 4 emails. And then you send those emails out to each of the segments of your audience who said, yeah, I'm interested. And you wouldn't send them all in one day, because some people might be like, I'm interested in all 4. Just send them over the course of the month. Like if you do a monthly newsletter, just do once a week then. And now some of your subscribers hear from you once a month. Some of them hear from you once a week because they're more interested in different topics. And so it's not like you're not sending them that information, but you're sending them one main topic, maybe ideally with one thing to click through. And you're reducing the information overload for people and being more relevant to them. And you can do that again with the automated tagging. You don't have to create an automated sequence if it's not evergreen, but if it is evergreen content, you could just make it an evergreen sequence. And so then new people sign up, they just hear from you, but you can just consider different options. That's what I meant by kill your newsletter.
That makes a lot of sense, and like you said, honestly, I've found myself unsubscribing from those long generic newsletters because I just don't have time for them, but, if I got emails that were more aligned with my interests, if they actually asked me what those were, I think that would make a big difference, and, so automation isn't about being impersonal, it's about getting more personal, but at scale, right?
Mhm.
So here's where I want to follow up. And you talked about this a bit through surveys. You mentioned segmentation, how to filter people into what's interested to them. And I want to dig into that a little bit more. So sending surveys, that's a great way to start tracking people's interests. What other avenues could nonprofits use to start adding those tags to donor profiles and to email contacts to maybe it's in your donation form and you asked a certain question, but what else could that look like?
Okay, so just a couple. If people sign up for an event, you tag them as have people have who had gone to that event. It's an easy way to find them again. Um, one I love to do is I will send an email to the list, like I'll add it to the main sequence or I'll blast it out and be like, "Hey, we put together a sequence of emails on this topic. Would you like to, and try to make that email really engaging and say, if you'd like to hear more, click this link and I'll send you that sequence." And then people who click on it, they'll get tagged and then they'll get added to that sequence. And so I know that they raise their hand saying, I want to hear about this. So you could do that with certain fundraising campaigns. Be like, would you like to know more about this? Like, tell a story that's really compelling and be like, we want to grow this program and we have several more stories to tell you. Would you like to hear these stories and how you can get involved? And so then you have people who've said, I want to hear about these stories. I want to get involved. And so if you do some fundraising, please, like, I'm interested in this. Other ways you can segment people just based on their engagement. So if they're opening an email, if they reply, a really useful way to use automation is for your fundraising team. Tag those people or send a notification to the fundraiser that they're assigned, like who's assigned to that person. Um, to reach out to them. Send a personal email. Give your fundraising team the signals that they need so that they don't have to always be looking for the people in your audience, but that based on this person's email engagement, they gave a gift of this amount the last 2 years, or they're a monthly donor, or they gave a large gift, or maybe you have some kind of wealth screening software. It's like between their wealth screening software and the amount of engagement they have with you, you should reach out to them and have a personal conversation with them. So there's some things based on the users. They open this number of emails, they've clicked on this number of emails, vice versa. If you have people who are like not opening your emails anymore, they're not engaging at all. What we do this too. We have a unsubscribed sequence, a list cleaning sequence. And we give them like 4 more emails, like 1 per day, saying, "Hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. Here's some resources we've created. Follow up with, is this still a good email for you? Are you still wanting to be subscribed? If you don't click any links or reply, we're just going to automatically unsubscribe you tomorrow. No hard feelings. We want to make sure that you don't get stuff that you don't want to hear from." Um, and then unsubscribe them. And then if they click any of those links, you'll tag them as like, no, they want to stay subscribed. We'll remove them from that sequence. Sometimes you need to do manual cleanup, but that can be a really good way to automatically remove people who are no longer wanting to be on your list and make it easy for them. Like, serve their needs, like take care of them. Don't make them have to go searching for an unsubscribe button and then go through 5 pages. And oh man, anyway, that's a different topic.
That's brilliant. And that's a much more user-friendly way of letting people control what they want to hear from you, right? And honestly, I think that donors appreciate that level of personalization and thoughtfulness. And just because they're unsubscribing from one thing doesn't mean that they're unsubscribing from caring about your mission. I think
Hmm.
giving them that option shows that you care and that you're listening to your community, and it keeps the door open for future engagement. So far, okay, it sounds like automation can be a huge benefit, and I'm sure there are also common mistakes nonprofits make when they're starting out. say you're wanting to build this out from scratch. What are the biggest pitfalls to watch out for, or mistakes you think people make when they're setting these types of automations up?
Maybe this goes without saying, but you need to test and make sure it works as you wanted it to. Um, make sure that if someone clicks on that link and you want to add them to an email sequence they requested, make sure that that actually sends them into that sequence. So just double check that things are working as intended. I mean, I definitely had snafus. We had a client who a bunch of their subscribers got removed by accident, and we sent out a personal email and we're like, we never sent this to you, and the automation broke, like we didn't check it properly. It was just like a personal email from the executive director with the promise, and encourage them to reply. And it was like great. People had a great response to it, but definitely test. But I think one area where you run into a lot of things that don't work is, what is the trigger for the workflow? Maybe the trigger is they signed up for your email list. Well, if you make it, they signed up for your email list, well, make sure that you want every single subscriber to go into that workflow. So you have to really think about, like, how does this get triggered? Could other things intentionally move people into this workflow that aren't relevant for those people? So it takes a little bit of art, a little bit of architecture, and a lot of testing. And, you just kind of build it as you go. And yeah, you start slowly, I would say. Do the simple thing like a welcome series or an unsubscribe series.
Yeah. Yeah. That testing part is key for sure. I have my own little email list of just colleagues that I know I can just send things to, and they can test and see if they click on this, they get
Sure.
tagged, they entered into this thing. And without that, many things probably could have gone not so well. And if you do make those mistakes, just keep it human, right? Um,
Hmm.
I think that's a big part. People really appreciate just that transparency. Um, okay, I want to leave our listeners with practical advice. So, if they're hearing this and thinking like, "All right, where do I begin? What's the first thing they should do to get started?" What would you advise they start with from the very beginning?
Yeah. Well, make sure your email software can actually do automation. All of them purport to, not very many of them do it very well. Some are much better than others in terms of the options you have. I feel like the biggest pitfall I find is the ones that are kind of not as savvy, don't have many ways to trigger a workflow. It's very limited in how a workflow can be triggered. And that's really almost the most important thing, because the rest of a workflow is usually just wait a day, delay, send an email, send an SMS, maybe tag someone. Like, there's a few actions there's not a whole lot of actions that you need a workflow to take. It's more like, how does this get started? And that's where you need to be able to really get into the nitty gritty to make sure the right people go into those workflows. So yeah, that is one thing. Make sure your software can do what you need it to do. And then start with your welcome series, because that's really straightforward. It's just like, when they sign up for this form, when they complete this form, put them into the series, send email, delay 1 day, send this email, delay 1 day until the end. Another thing you could do is your next fundraising campaign, you're going to do maybe 6 emails, 10 emails over the course of a couple weeks, year end or some other key time of the year. Instead of writing those and blasting them out, write them and put them into a sequence and schedule it, and then add everyone to that sequence. Or add, if you want to really get the best quality, with the risk of maybe some people not going into it, that might have give people the option to opt into that sequence. Again, you have your email list, you want to do fundraising with them. But if it's especially like, for example, you got monthly donors and you don't want to hit them with other asks, well, an email that invite them to be part of a fundraising sequence where they learn more and could get more involved, that's on them. So again, whenever you can, batch your emails, put them into a sequence, and set your subscribers into that. And then you're not having to even remember to blast those emails out once per day. It's all like preloaded. So those are the places where I would start. And then if you really have gotten those done, then you could consider an automatic list cleanup sequence as well.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask about that, data review, making sure that you've got like that good data to work with before you're setting up all these awesome systems. What could that possibly look like?
I guess I would say you might have to do some manual, like you might create a workflow to manually tag people, for example. Like if you haven't been tagging your monthly donors, like maybe you would tag them all. And that way, when you send out certain emails, you can exclude them. If we don't want them to be asked right now, this isn't the right time to do that. Or you can, again, manually, tag everyone who it hasn't given yet. So having some of those segments in place is really, really helpful.
That's probably all I've ever done is that manual work on the front end,
Cool.
right? Takes a little bit of elbow grease, but I think it pays off in the long run. And then once you have that system
Definitely.
set up, it'll do the work for you. It's a great way to ease into it. Starting with something small like tagging folks from your fundraising campaign or your monthly donors can already make a big difference in donor engagement, donor retention. And you've probably heard me say this 10 million times, but if you're talking to everybody, you are not really talking to anybody, right? Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I think this really feels like an approach that could make a big difference for nonprofits looking to be more efficient, strategic, and more meaningful in their outreach. Before we wrap up, where can people connect with you and learn more about Beeline?
Oh, I wanted to just mention one really interesting stat before I share about where you can connect with me. One of the partners I work with, Caitlin Bond of KB Digital, said one of her clients moved from monthly to weekly emails, and the result was 47% increase in donor retention and 3 times more spontaneous gives just by sending more emails. Because I think we forget, like, our subscribers want to hear from us. It's just they want to hear from us relevantly, and they don't want to be overwhelmed. And they want to hear from us more personally. And if we're sending like a smaller email with a personal summary from the person on your marketing team or your fundraising or executive director, sharing a piece of news and with a link, that feels way more personal and down to earth than this newsletter with all these different things in it. So you will be less afraid to send your subscribers more emails if you know you're sending them more relevant stuff. In terms of connecting, just go to yourbeeline.com. And you can either email me, team@yourbeeline.com, chris@yourbeeline.com. We'll go to my team or me. You can go to our website, yourbeeline.com, and there's a little B in the bottom right corner where you can input your biggest marketing question right now. It's the Beeline GPT, uses all the content and thought leadership, and will share and create for you a unique, customized digital resource that you can then email to yourself. So I don't have a specific ebook for you. You can just create one yourself really quickly and easily.
That's so cool. Okay, the little bee in the corner of yourbeeline.com. There you go. You get a customized resource. Gosh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Chris. It's always a pleasure. I love learning from you. And
Thank you.
for everybody listening, thank you for joining us on the Nonprofit Podcast. I hope you've left with the confidence to take a small step today that will make a big difference tomorrow. Be sure to click the download button on your podcast player, then leave the Nonprofit Podcast a review or give it a thumbs up if you're listening to the Nonprofit Podcast on YouTube. Your review is a great way to help others find us. You're here to help others. We're here to help you. Until next time, stay inspired.
That warm feeling when you help someone, it's not just happiness, it's fulfillment. And we believe it should be available to everyone, from frontline heroes to first-time fundraisers. Our tools empower you to help others. This is our mission. This is Donorbox, helping you help others.